Hello, I'm Nora, and welcome back to Novels with Nora. In 2025, I read the most books that I've ever read in a year, which means when it comes to compiling my end of year reading statistics, I had a lot of data to work with. So this video is going to be me going over all of my reading goals that I had set for 2025 and seeing if I met them, achieved them, completed them, but then also looking at all of my end of year reading stats. So like how many books I read, how many 5 stars I had, what genres they were, what audience they were intended for, just all of the things that I love compiling. And I have made pie charts because of course I have. So we're gonna be looking at all of these things in this video, and then in another video, because I think it'll be too much all for one, I am going to be using this information to look forward to 2026 and compile new reading challenges and goals for myself moving into the new year. So I think without further ado, let's just get into the statistics and seeing if I met my goals. So starting with my 2025 reading goals, I'm using my little reading journal here. How cutesy. My first goal was to read 45 books. I'm just gonna read all of my goals and then we'll dig into each one. First goal was to read 45 books. Read more owned books. Read at least 12 nonfiction, read at least 12 sapphic books, consistently track my reading, complete Buzzwordathon, and complete the alphabet reading challenge. So, going back up to read 45 books. Like I said, I have read the most I've ever read in a year this past year in 2025, and I read 110 books. So I more than doubled this goal, which is very exciting, and I truly had no intention of doing that. I think it was a combination of things that led me to being able to do that. One, this YouTube channel, I have just been reading a lot for content, and not necessarily in a way where it's like I'm picking things up just to make content about them, but like if I'm not reading, I have nothing to make content about. So I read a lot of things from my shelves and things that I've been wanting to get to so that I could have content to make, which has been really exciting because I know that I would imagine that it's probably pretty easy to fall into a trap of, well, I know what's going to do well and it's going to be like the new hot releases, so let me read all of those and then make content based on what I think will do well rather than the content I actually want to make. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of staying true to the content that I want to make in the books I want to read. However, I will say that making content leads to me reading a lot more, just like naturally. It just happens because if I want to be making content, which I do because I really love doing this, I need to be reading things to then have something to talk about. So that's one of the factors that led to this. And the other was I am in grad school now. 2025 was the first year that I was in grad school, which I actually thought would mean that I'm reading less than ever before because I had no clue what my work-life balance was going to look like. However, one of the courses I took in my fall semester was called Engaging Teens. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know what I'm about to say, and you've heard me talk about this before, but that course, like the main thing that we were doing in there was reading 22 books for teens, and so 22 of my 110 books came from that course. So I think that truly without my YouTube and without that course, I would not have read this much because I just felt so inspired to read, especially because of that course. While I was reading things that I was like genuinely enjoying, it was also just like I love reading, but I was reading things that I wasn't loving, and so it's like I want to be reading, but I want to be reading something I love. So then I was reading even more because of that, which it was very interesting, but I'm very happy with how that turned out. And then my second goal was to read more owned books, which was a very broad, unspecific goal. So moving forward, if I want to continue a goal like this, I need to be more specific with it, because more than what? Because I had tracked this in the past, but did I mean that I wanted to read more than that, or just like more in general? I don't really know. Like even though I'm the one who set this goal, I don't know. So when we get into the stats, we'll see more about this, but I did read 43 owned books, which I feel like is pretty good. And just like in general, I've mentioned this before, my shelves are mostly full of books that I've already read because that's what I enjoy having on my shelves, which is something that I think I might want to change up in the new year because it's really fun to like shop my shelves and like when I'm in the mood to read, just like have things here. But like these two shelves here and part of this one, they're mostly all things that I've already read. So it just leaves very little option for when I'm wanting to pull from my own shelves. So this is one that like, did I technically complete it? Yes, but because I set no parameters for it. So technically completed, but need to be more specific in the future. The next goal was to read at least 12 nonfiction. I did not achieve this. I only read 8, and this was partly, I don't even really know why I didn't complete this other than I don't gravitate towards nonfiction. I had set it at 12 for like 1 a month, and I was doing really well in the beginning. There were even some months where I was reading 2 a month. However, I think at least 2 or 3 of these came from that course that I was talking about. So not even all of my own volition was I picking these up. So I am a little disappointed in myself for this because while I feel like I set myself quite a few goals, this is one where I was like really wanting to do this because this was my first year out of undergrad where I was reading a lot of nonfiction like for my classes and things, and I wanted to keep up with that and keep engaging my brain in that way. And while I did I read 8, so more than half of what I wanted to do, but not all of what I wanted to do. And like 1 a month isn't hard, especially for how much I was reading each month, which we'll get to. But yeah, so I am a little disappointed in this, and I am setting this goal again for myself next year because I know I can do it. I just need to actually put forth the effort. And part of this is then because I think only like 2 or 3 of the books for my like reading like assignment for that course were nonfiction. And so a lot of the reading that I was doing felt obligatory, where then I did not want to read nonfiction that also felt obligatory. So moving on from that, did not accomplish it. Will set this goal again next year. And the next goal was to read at least 12 sapphic books. And this was a goal that I set for myself mainly as like a baseline because I know that I read a lot of books with sapphic relationships in them, not even like just romance, but I didn't know how many. And so this was like the first year I was really tracking this, so I wasn't sure. It was a lot, let me tell you, like to the point where I stopped tracking it because it filled up the page dedicated to it in my journal at 17. And that stopped like not even halfway through the year. So like this was the page I had dedicated to it. This was for nonfiction and this was for sapphic books. You can see the difference. So I ended up just stopping tracking that one because I don't really need to know exactly how many. I'm just happy to know that it's more than 12, and it's like quite significantly more than that because that was, again, like not even halfway through the year. I was already at 17. So I was like, okay, clearly I'm reading a lot of sapphic things. It's not something I feel the need to track or like obtain or like work toward because I'm already doing it. So did accomplish that, will not set that goal again. This was truly just like a baseline goal to see where I was at. Next was consistently track my reading, and oh my goodness did I. This I actually went like above and beyond too far. I tracked my reading in 2 spreadsheets, 3 apps, this journal, and a different notebook, and on this channel. It was just honestly too much, and it got to a point where it was just like hard for me to keep up with. And even like one of my spreadsheets I kind of gave up with halfway through the year because it was just collecting so much information that I did not need to be tracking. So moving forward, I am going to really like tamp down how much I'm doing because I do not need to be doing that much. Like it got to the point where it was a chore rather than something I was excited to do. And so like this reading journal that I've kept, I really love this. My reading notebook, that's like a classic for me. I love doing it. The 3 apps that I use will probably stay, but do I need both of those spreadsheets? Do I need either of them? I don't know, and that is something that I will have to think about for 2026 because I can't keep up with that much. It is simply too much. And so then like one would always fall behind, and I'd have to spend like sometimes over an hour just like backlogging all of the things that I needed to track in there. And like that's just not pleasant, not enjoyable, not something that I wish to do to myself again this year. So did I consistently track my reading this year? Yes. Will I continue the way I've been doing it next year? No. Moving on. Next was complete Buzzwordathon, and this is super exciting. Yes, I did do this. This is the second year that I've really like attempted Buzzwordathon, and only the first year that I've completed it. And not only did I complete the title challenge, but I completed the cover challenge as well. And this is the first year that the cover challenge has been implemented for like I think it was some kind of anniversary for Buzzwordathon, which is a reading challenge hosted by Books and Lala here on BookTube. And I completed each prompt within the month that it was like designated for. So that was super exciting because my original goal was to do the cover or the title prompt within the month that the prompt was for, and then just hope and try and achieve all of the cover prompts by the end of the year. But I actually ended up achieving both title and cover within the month of their prompt. So that was super exciting and just like very thrilling for me. And I do think I will continue with Buzzwordathon, just maybe not as intensely, but that is something that I will probably keep up with because I had a lot of fun with it. And then my final reading goal was to complete the alphabet challenge. And I didn't do this because I had a few letters left. However, about like halfway through the year, I realized that this wasn't so much a reading challenge as just like something that I was tracking for myself because I realized that like I don't really care. Like it's fun to track and it's interesting to see, but I'm not like, oh, I didn't get X or I didn't get Z, I'm a failure. It was kind of just interesting to see. So I did not complete this, but I only missed 4 letters. Those letters being J, Q, X, and Z, which makes complete sense. I'm surprised I even got like V, W, and Y. So that was exciting for me. And so this is something that I'll probably like be aware of in the back of my head, but I'm gonna still like track it and see, but it's not so much a challenge as it is just like something interesting for me to see what I'm reading. Like if I was reading, like I wanted to read a book from like every continent or like from an author of every country, that would be one thing that like actually had like some significance, I guess, where this is kind of just like a fun, silly thing for me to do and doesn't really have any like standing on my, because I'm not going to pick up a book that starts with like the title starts with a Z just to complete this challenge when that doesn't really mean anything. And if there's no books with that I'm interested in, I don't want to force myself to read them just for the sake of this challenge. And that's something that I've learned about myself this year, is that if I'm like partaking in a challenge and there's a prompt that like I cannot find a single book that I'm like drawn to for that prompt, I'm not going to do it, because I don't want to force myself to read things that I'm not enjoying. And that's something else that we'll get to later on in the video when we go to my stats. But yeah, so like I'll continue to track this just to see if it's like the same letters consistently that I'm missing. But I had fun with it. Again, I don't really think that it's like a goal or like a challenge for me to be completing anymore. So change of mindset on that one. Didn't technically complete it, but right. So those were all the goals I set for myself. But then there was one more thing that I didn't really set as a goal because I forgot about it halfway through the year. And that was my list of 20 and 2025 that I made for myself. And honestly, I completely forgot about this halfway through the year until I was like, oh shoot, I did that and I don't think I'm very far in. So prior to December, I had only read 9 of the things on this list, and then in December I was able to read one more. So the items on this list were Godly Heathens, He Who Drowned the World, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, Iron Widow, Sound the Gong, What the Woods Took, The Poppy War, Her Radiant Curse, Otherworldly, Song of Silver, Flame Like Night, The Brightness Between Us, Threads That Bind, Big Swiss, The Honey Witch, House of Roots and Ruin, Small Favors, Violet Made of Thorns, Spells for Forgetting, The Testing, and The Lost Dreamer, which are all things that have been on my shelves for a little while that I wanted to prioritize getting to and then completely forgot about. And I think that has to do with starting this channel and like being in grad school and just all of these things that like, and also just tracking my reading in so many places I wasn't always looking at this page. So just lots of things piled onto this. But I did read 10 of the 20, which I do feel like, for completely forgetting that this was a thing that existed, I feel like that's pretty good. So the 10 that I read were Daughter of the Moon Goddess, Sound the Gong, What the Woods Took, Otherworldly, The Honey Witch, House of Roots and Ruin, Small Favors, Violet Made of Thorns, Spells for Forgetting, and The Testing. I'm happy with that. I did set this goal again for myself in 2026 as like a little nod to that next video. And so I do have that again, and I did put some of the same books on it, and we'll see if I actually get to them and if I remember that this is the thing I'm doing. But for the most part, I'm really happy with how this year went. Honestly, in total, I'm really very happy with how this year went reading-wise for me. Like truly could not have asked for, well, I was gonna say could not have asked for a better reading year, but there are some things that we'll get to. And speaking of, I feel like 2025 was a very interesting year for me personally. I had 2 surgeries this year. I started grad school. I started my YouTube channel. I became the president of a student organization. Like a lot was going on in my personal life and also just like academically. So the fact that I managed to read this much is crazy to me. I do not think it'll happen again, and I do not want it to happen again. So I guess let's just get into that. Don't get me wrong, I love reading and I'm so proud of myself for reading this much. Truly, I did not think I was going to. I thought it was gonna be a stretch to get to 45 books, but I don't want to ever read this many books in a year ever again, I don't think. Like obviously things can change, but I feel like the majority of my reads this year were like middle of the road. Like I just felt very neutral about them. And when I think back on the year, I genuinely don't remember that many of the books that I read. The ones that I loved, I really loved. And I had 25 stars, which again, we'll get more into with the stats. So I was reading a lot of things that I really enjoyed, but I was also reading so many things that just fell flat for me and were just so middle of the road, truly. Like a lot of 3 and 3.5 stars that like I barely remember reading and like have no strong emotional connection to because I just simply don't care about them. And like that's what made up the majority of my reading this year, which like is fine, but I want it to be better than that, and I know it can be. And obviously this part of this is because of that reading assignment that I had to do. I wasn't really that much in control of the things I was picking, but I want to be more in control and I want to be more mindful, and I just want to read a little bit more slowly and just like really engage deeper with the things that I'm reading, which I'll talk more about in my 2026 reading goals and plans video. But I just wanted to put that out there that yes, I read all of these things, and like yes, I remember most of them, but I don't have like fond memories or strong connections to most of them. So that being said, now let's just get into all of my statistics for my 2025 year of reading. Like I said, I made some pie charts, so I'm gonna scooch over a little and I will put them up over here. I know that the bookshelves aren't like the best plain background for seeing what's happening there, but I will also tell you what's happening. So starting with my ratings for the year. Like I said, I had 25-star reads, which is very exciting and more than last year. So even like, I'm glad to see that because I was reading more, I was getting more 5 stars. So that's good at least. And then I had 13 4.5 stars, 13 4 stars, 23 3.5 stars, 12 3 stars, 3 2.5 stars, 5 2 stars, and then 21 books were unrated. And this was pretty much everything from that reading assignment and graphic novels. I read more graphic novels this year than I ever have before, which is another pie chart that I'll show, but that's where those unrated ones are coming from. So my highest number of ratings, I guess, was 23 with my 3.5 stars. And this is what I'm talking about, where yes, I read a lot, but a lot of it was kind of like just okay. And even though I had 25 stars, it's still one of like the smaller pieces of this pie. So just something to think about moving forward, but I am really happy with how this turned out. And I had a lot of 4.5 and 5 stars, so that's still very exciting. And the lower ratings, like 2, 2.5, and 3, were some of the smaller ones. So that's exciting. And then moving over to, like I talked about, my wanting to read more of my own books, I read 43 of my owned books and 67 unowned. Granted, all 67 of those came from the library in some format or another. They all came from the library. So I can't really be mad at that. And again, I don't know what I was trying to like compare this metric to or like against. I really have no clue. But 43 owned and 67 unowned, I'm quite happy with this. Like, obviously I would like to be reading more of my owned books, but I don't know that I have 67 unowned books or 67 unread books on the shelves to then read. So I'm still very happy with this. Also, I love supporting my library. This is one that I just like to track to see, and like especially over the years I like to see. But I'm not like, oh man, I only read 43 owned books this year. It doesn't really matter to me. Next is the intended audience of the books. So I read 47 YA novels, 5 new adult novels, 57 adult novels, and 1 middle grade novel. So I'm very happy with this. And most of the new adult ones weren't necessarily like shelved or categorized as new adult on their own, but I felt like that's where they should go. So that's where I put them. And this is honestly not very surprising. I feel like in years past, let's see, I made these pie charts also like the same pie charts last year. So I can look and see. Okay, so last year I read 26 YA and 13 adult with no middle grade or new adult. So my adult section of the pie has definitely gotten a lot bigger, but also my YA almost nearly doubled from last year. And again, this just has to do with reading significantly more books, but then also for all of the 22 books that I read for my reading assignment were YA novels and the 1 middle grade. So this all makes sense to me. I imagine that this will continue to fluctuate because once I'm out of grad school, I won't be like forced to read YA as much, but I'm also planning on being a teen librarian. So I imagine I will still be reading YA. So I'm just very curious to see how this changes. And that's why I really like tracking this one, is just to like see its progress over time. Okay, next is the format of the books that I read. So coming at no surprise to anyone, my highest section, more than half of the pie, physical and audio at 55 books. This makes complete sense to me. This is my favorite way to read, my ideal way of reading. This makes sense. Then ebook and audio at 15, physical, just plain physical, 20, ebook 15, and audio 5. I think this is the only year that I've ever read, like had a piece on the pie chart of just audiobooks. Let's see. Yeah, so because last year it was just physical and audio, physical, and then ebook and audio. So glad to see that I'm kind of like expanding on how, like the format of my reading. It's no surprise to me that physical and audio is the biggest. And when I was putting this together, I almost felt like, oh, I wish I'd read more physically. But why? Why did I feel like that? Is it because around this time of year, we always have the discourse of, well, you read how many books in a year and how many of them were ebooks? How many of them were audiobooks? And so then I kind of like internalized that and was like, oh, if I'm reading these as ebooks, then does that really count? Of course it counts. Do not internalize those evil messaging that always come around this time of year. Ebooks still count as reading, and so do audiobooks, and so do physical, and however you're reading, it counts as reading because you're reading. But anyway, this came as no surprise to me. I will say the 5 audio did surprise me, but that makes sense. I really got into playing games on my iPad this year. Specifically, I have like a coloring app that I really love, and I really like listening to audiobooks while I do that. So kind of surprising, but also when I like put it in context of what was going on in my life, makes complete sense. Then we had the status of my authors. So I had, again, more like almost half of the pie chart here. 55 authors were new to me. 30 were authors that I'd read before, and 24 were debut. I'm really very happy with this. Like, this is one where I would love to see the new to me. Well, actually, new to me is the biggest, which is super exciting. But I would like to see the debut getting a little bit bigger. But also, I could have been reading debut novels, just like that author has published more. So I'm really happy with this. I feel like having the biggest piece of the pie being new to me, very exciting. I found some like new favorite authors this year, so very exciting. Going to, this is one I love to track every year. So like if we look back at last year's, so there was 27 read before, 7 new to me, and 6 debut. So this one like completely flipped, which very exciting. And I think had a lot to do with my YouTube channel and also that reading assignment. So very exciting about that. And I hope that that one continues to stay somewhat in the same of like the new to me authors becoming bigger. But I'm also not mad at reading authors that I've read before because it means that I like them. Anyway, my final pie chart here is the type of novel that I was reading. So I read 94 novels, 6 novellas, and 8 graphic novels. One of them was a manga, but I wasn't gonna put just like one sliver on here. So technically 7 graphic novels and 1 manga, but this is again not surprising. I am surprised by how many novellas I read. And also I don't typically read graphic novels. And I wanna say like 3 or 4 graphic novels and then the 1 manga were for the reading assignment, but there were definitely like 3 or 4 again that I picked up just on my own and really enjoyed. So yeah, I would say this was a very good reading year for me, and I'm very happy with everything that turned out and how everything turned out, but I do have a few more stats to share, so that just aren't pie charts. Looking now at the months of my reading, in January, I was able to read 10 books. In February, I read 8. In March, I read 6. April 9, May 9, June 7, July 6, August 7, September 11, October 14, November 13, and December 10. So I was reading a lot, especially towards the end of the year, and it wasn't so much like a let me cram things in, especially after August. That is when that class ended, and so I had free time to read for myself again, and clearly I was taking incredible advantage of that and reading a lot of things. And then if we look at the number of 5 stars I got within those months. So like I said, January, 10 books, 3 5 stars. February, 8 books, 2 5 stars. March, 6 books, 1 5 star. April, 9 books, 2 5 stars. May, 9 books, 2 5 stars again. June, 7 books, 1 5 star. July, 6 books, 1 5 star. August, 7 books, 3 5 stars, which 3 is the most I got in a month. September, 11 books, 1 5 star. Like, this is what I'm talking about, where I was reading a lot, but like, were they necessarily things that I was loving? Not necessarily. October, 14 books and only 1 5 star. November, 13, 2 5 stars. And December, 10 books and 1 5 star. So this is what I'm talking about, where I was reading a lot, like especially in the months where I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot of things, but was I getting 5 stars? Not necessarily. So that concludes my 2025 year of reading and all of my 2025 reading stats. Like I said, I love making these pie charts. I love getting to look back at years previous and compare and just see what's going on and how my reading is changing and how I'm growing as a reader. So this is always just very fun for me. I really do these videos for myself more than anything, but if you enjoy watching them, thank you. I really appreciate that because I really love putting these pie charts together and just like doing everything to get all of these statistics put together. So I really had a wonderful reading year. I hope that everyone continues to have good reading years, and I hope that in 2026 I have more 5 stars than I did this year, and I hope that you do as well. I hope that you find your new favorite read in 2026, or that you did in 2025. I don't know. I just hope that everyone is enjoying what they're reading and having a good time with it, and I hope that you are able to block out all of the criticism that readers get of what they're reading and how they're reading and why they're reading. Just the fact that you're reading is wonderful. So thank you for being here. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in another video again soon. Bye.